What's it like playing violin in a band? If you are interested in the technical side of playing violin in a band, please find a video below where I talk about that. This is going to be about the experiential side and what it brings into your life. So, what's the difference between playing in a band and playing in an orchestra? First of all, you're always playing exposed as a soloist, so whatever you play, you can't disappear into the back of the orchestra and get away with not being heard. You need to make sure that everything that you play is correct and clear and well rehearsed. The other difference would be that in an orchestra you play sheet music, which has already been composed. But when you play in a band, you can improvise or you can write your own music, or sometimes people will tell you what they want you to play. Most of the time, I very rarely work with sheet music. I can read it, but I don't find it the quickest way to learn for me. I learn more quickly by ear. So if I am playing in somebody else's project, for example, at the moment I play in I would call it a Balkan punk band, where I'm not the leader of that band. I will just listen for what does the songwriter want me to play. He'll sing it to me and we'll jam a little bit and then come up with ideas that way. So if you're more of a creative musician, then playing in a band really will suit you. The other great part of playing in a band is that you can travel with it and meet people. So something that I never understood about the violin was that you could play in a band, but I always wanted to be in a band, so I started playing electric guitar so I could do so. However, when I understood that you could play violin in a band, it opened up a whole world to me. Within the first year of joining my first proper band, I was able to travel to 13 different countries all around Europe. I played at some of the UK's most exciting festivals, Festival, Secret Garden Party, Small World, and where else have I played? All over London in some of the music venues like Hootenannies. Basically, it got me to have a really great idea of what's going on in the music scene, particularly the grassroots scene in the UK and around Europe, and meet other people involved in that scene and see what's, some of the other most exciting cities in Europe are, what's happening there in terms of music. So I'm really grateful for that experience. It completely changed my life, and I'm lucky to have had the experience. And although that first band, I didn't get paid money to do that role, we were DIY, so we were self-sustaining, which means that we basically booked all our own gigs, did all our own management, managed our own costs, negotiated our own bookings. I was lead on the bookings negotiation primarily, so I sort of cut my teeth on how to manage myself by being in that project. And then later, when I started my own band, which was the Shanty Duo, this was my baby, and I used these skills in order to be able to make it a business, essentially. So the reason that I have been able to survive as a musician for so long is because I treat my band like a business, and I do manage all the bookings myself. I don't have a management or an agent because I don't believe that anyone can do as good a job as me, because I'm the one that's passionate about it, right? So then I'm playing in weddings at this point, and it was an acoustic duo with a guitar player. So that was very different because it felt more like a job. And obviously we were taking money to play at weddings, so it was a profession by that point. And I still got to travel a lot, but this time I was traveling primarily around the UK, and I'd be driving to weddings, playing at them and coming home. So this was a very different experience because the first band was more about party and festivals and all that kind of thing, which, by my sort of mid to late 20s, I was actually a bit tired of all of that and felt that it would suit me better to play in a more sort of chilled environment. In the interim between the two bands, I did play in a lot of other bands. This was during the period where I sort of decided that I wanted to become a professional musician and make it my job. So I started to freelance as in the office job that I had done in my early 20s. And basically, in my free time, I would practice the violin and play in whatever projects anyone invited me to join. So that was really good, but then by the time I started making music a profession, I stopped playing in a lot of bands and just focused on one. This can be, in my opinion, and the way that I have managed my own career, it's better for me to focus on one project, because then I can make it work financially. Because if you play in a lot of people's different projects, then you're kind of dependent on A, being available every time they have a gig, which the more bands that you're in, the more difficult that is. And B, the bigger the band, the less money there is to share around. So if you're in a lot of very big bands, then you're probably going to be very busy and you probably won't have an income that's survivable. So I decided to do a duo because I wanted to go full time. And when we played at weddings, we could share that and live off the money. Concomitantly, which means at the same time, I also started teaching around the time that I started my wedding business, just because people were asking me. I'd been busking quite a lot before that. I'd busked full time for 6 months, and almost every day someone would ask me if I would teach them, and I'd say no. So I actually ended up having a friend who was a violin teacher who was like, dude, you can teach violin, like I'm gonna give you students when I'm sick. How about that? Try it. And I did, and then I started. So I was able to live from the weddings and this. And I played in a couple of other, like now and again, if somebody offered me paid studio work or something regular that was paid, then of course I would take that if I could, but I prioritized my own band because that's where my bread and butter came from. So that was a very different experience because playing at weddings is a job. Whereas when you play in a band for free, it's more of a sort of fun experience. So when it's your profession, you have to treat it as a profession. So every element of it had to be highly organized. If I'm playing at weddings, then I've got to make sure that I'm not late. I don't lose any equipment. Anything like that happens, then you have a problem. So what really helped me with that was having the experience of working in business when I was younger. I worked in the City of London as a conference producer when I was young, and this taught me how to manage a business. So if you want to be a professional musician, yes, you need to practice a lot, but you also can benefit from understanding how business works, because if you can do that, then you're in charge of your own destiny, essentially. You're not having to rely on what venues say they'll pay for you or what sort of handouts you get from the tip box or whatever. But you also then need to think a little bit more commercially, so you lose some of the creative side of being in a band if you're just doing a band for money. So once I'd done that for a while, that was great too, though I also travelled around the UK a lot. I learned a lot about Indian culture as I was playing at Indian and also Pakistani culture, Indian and Pakistani weddings as I played Bollywood music. I love that music, so I enjoyed it. However, everything runs its course, and lockdown hit. I actually injured my arm in lockdown to the point where I couldn't play violin properly for about a year and a half. A little bit, but not much. So during that phase, I became a full-time teacher because A, it was lockdown, everyone was starting the violin, I'm doing online lessons. And then after lockdown, a lot of the violin teachers in my area had quit, so they didn't want to teach online, which I completely understand. And then I just became completely flooded with students for a while. That was around the time I started this channel as well. And then later, the old band that I had been in before lockdown, once my arm had recovered, I had to spend a couple of years working on that, which is why I didn't post so many videos during that time, as I thought, I can't teach if I can't play, I need to fix myself. So, yeah. Then I got an invitation from the first band that I'd been in my 20s, the Balkan punk band, and they said, come and move to Thailand and join the band again, and we're going to go full time. This time we had some money behind us as the singer from the band started an IT business which financed everything. So I've been here for the last year and a half now playing in that band, which has been amazing because it's the old songs that I played when I was younger, except we've had the time to sort of really work on the set because we don't have other jobs and no financial constraints. So that's been fantastic. And during this year I got to tour Europe again, and we went on tour with one of my favorite bands, Culture Shock, with a K. They're from Seattle. Fantastic band, by the way, absolutely amazing. I'll try to remember to link down to their YouTube down in the link below. So that was absolutely incredible. I really, really enjoyed it, and I got again to go to a lot of different countries, some of which I'd never been to, some of which I had been to before, but you know, just being on the road for me is an amazing experience, like nothing I wouldn't change that for anything. So if you're considering whether you want to join a band, just the very experience of going on the road and seeing the world and meeting all the people that you meet on the road, it's a little bit like falling in love going on tour. When you go on tour, you fall in love a little bit with every experience that you have. And when you come home, you feel empty because you can't share with anyone around you what it was like, and it's gone. It's never coming back again. But you learn to let go of people and things very, very easily when you do this a lot, because life moves on. And one of the most wonderful things about being a musician is you get to have these experiences, but they are passing. And a lot of the time, they're not necessarily the experiences that you value when you're older as much. So when I'm younger, I wanted to go to all these festivals, go to all these parties, meet people, have fun, get lots of free drinks all the time, and not have to pay to party essentially, and get to go and experience what it's like to play in a rock band on a stage, which was what I dreamed about as a kid. So it's amazing, and it's not that hard to get going once you start, but you do need to bear in mind that if you want to be successful in a band, then you need to treat it a bit professionally. So for example, if you are going to be routinely late for sound checks, then you probably won't get booked again. If you get too drunk, then you probably won't get booked again. I'm fairly sure from back in the day we've probably did that a couple of times. What was the highlight of my experience? I would say it was playing the Colours of Ostrava festival in Czech Republic, where we got to play in front of about, 2,000 people, something like this, and it was a really, really big stage. And backstage I met Mike Patton and Jamie Cullum, which was absolutely crazy, and it was just something I'll always remember. And the day before we'd driven like 14 hours from a different country to get there and had 2 hours sleep. That night we got a hotel and we were all so excited, but we couldn't sleep in it for more than 4 hours in the afternoon, because then we had to get on the road to go to our next gig. So that's the other element actually. The bad stuff when you're on tour is you don't get to sleep. You really don't. Even if you aren't playing so late, you still often have to wake up early, and after you come off stage you normally have to wait till the club closes to clear the stage of your equipment, and then you might get like 4 hours sleep, and then you're on the road again at any time between sort of 7 and 9 in the morning normally, as you need to get in early to sound check about 3 or 4 o'clock in the next city, which could be in a different country. And then you wait around, and then you might play around 11 o'clock, midnight, something like that, finish, club shuts around 2, 3 in the morning, and then you've got to load your van, then you've got to get back to your hotel and then sleep as soon as possible. It's really hard to sleep because you're wired, and then do it all the next day. So yeah, I think that's about enough for today. If you've got any more questions about my experience, there's an awful lot of information to pack in, so I've sort of just been kind of saying things as they come to me at random. But if you want to know anything else, let me know. Maybe I can do more in-depth videos on particular aspects of playing violin in a band. If you're considering playing violin in a band, do it. Just say yes, go for it. You'll have a great time. All of my friends, everything that's been great about my life has come from my experience of playing violin in a band.